Jasmine Crockett stood quietly backstage, her heartbeat calm despite the weight of the moment. On the monitor, she watched Pam Bondi confidently address the congressional committee, asserting, "Democrats have been misleading the American public for years." The cameras captured Bondi's self-assured smile as she added, "No one dares to challenge me with real facts." What Bondi didn't realize was that Congresswoman Crockett had spent weeks preparing for this exact encounter, armed with documents no one anticipated. The committee room buzzed with quiet tension as Bondi continued her testimony, Republican members nodding in agreement, appearing to celebrate yet another win for the former Florida Attorney General. Then the tone shifted. The chair announced, "The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Crockett, for 5 minutes of questioning." What followed left the entire room in stunned silence. Crockett walked to her seat calmly, placed a folder of evidence before her, and fixed her eyes on Bondi. The room fell completely still as she began to speak, her tone steady and precise. "Ms. Bondi, you've made several strong statements today. I have here verifiable proof that each one of them is false. Are you ready to clarify your position before the American people?" Bondi's confident expression flickered for a moment, a brief flash of uncertainty that the cameras caught instantly, soon to circulate widely across social media. No one could have predicted what was about to happen over the next 5 minutes. A rebuttal so detailed and thorough that political commentators would analyze it for months afterward. Before we break down this extraordinary exchange, remember to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss our latest political insights. Now let's examine how Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett delivered one of the most precise and effective counterarguments in recent congressional history. Pam Bondi had been a dominant voice on political panels and hearings for months, her reputation as a strong conservative advocate continuing to rise. As Florida's former Attorney General and a frequent guest on political talk shows, Bondi carried herself with the assurance of someone rarely confronted by serious opposition. Her polished speaking style and assertive tone had made her a regular favorite among conservative outlets, where she often made bold claims that typically went unchallenged. That day's hearing was expected to be another easy victory. Bondi had been invited by Republican members to testify on government accountability, armed once again with her familiar line of partisan criticism. The hearing room was filled with journalists and cameras, ready to capture what many assumed would be another predictable display of political theater. Yet in the background was Representative Jasmine Crockett, the freshman lawmaker from Texas, who had quietly gained a reputation for her sharp intellect and meticulous legal reasoning. Before entering politics, Crockett had built a strong record as a civil rights attorney, known for her ability to dismantle weak arguments with precision. Unlike others who sought attention, she preferred to stay focused on facts, conducting thorough research before speaking. "She's been preparing for this day for weeks," whispered one of her staffers. "She's barely slept, checking every document and source to ensure nothing is overlooked." This confrontation wasn't just about personality. It carried real political weight. Bondi's repeated misinformation had tangible effects on policy discussions impacting millions of Americans. If left unchallenged, her claims might soon be cited in upcoming legislation. The stakes, therefore, were immense. The contrast between the two women in the room was striking. Bondi sat confidently at the witness table, her appearance polished, wearing a tailored designer suit that radiated authority. She arrived with a team of aides carrying briefing binders, projecting power and preparation. Crockett, seated among her colleagues, appeared less concerned with presentation and more focused on precision. Her quiet determination and composed demeanor hinted at the preparation that had gone into what would soon become one of the most talked about exchanges in congressional history. While Pam Bondi arrived with an entourage, Jasmine Crockett brought something far more powerful: facts. As the chair recognized Congresswoman Crockett for her 5 minutes of questioning, the mood in the room shifted noticeably. Those familiar with Crockett's approach sat up straighter, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. What happened next would echo across Washington for months. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," Crockett began, her tone steady and composed. "Ms. Bondi, I've been listening closely to your testimony today, and I have several questions about some of your statements." Bondi nodded with confidence. expecting the usual partisan exchange that often defines such hearings. "Of course, Congresswoman," she replied smoothly. "I'd be happy to clarify anything that seemed unclear." Her slightly condescending tone didn't go unnoticed. A few committee members exchanged knowing glances, and staffers in the back raised their eyebrows. But Crockett remained calm and focused. "Let's begin with your claim," Crockett said, opening a folder before her, "that the previous administration achieved, and I quote, the strongest job creation record in American history. Are you standing by that statement?" "Absolutely," Bondi replied without hesitation. "The numbers don't lie." Crockett nodded thoughtfully. "I agree, the numbers don't lie. That's why your statement surprises me." She pulled a document from her folder and placed it on the projector. A chart appeared on screens around the room. "This data comes directly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics," she explained evenly. "As you can see, job creation during the administration you're referencing actually ranks 5th in modern history, not 1st. Bondi's confident smile tightened slightly as the room fell silent, the evidence speaking louder than any rebuttal. "Well, Congresswoman, if you look at the specific sectors I was referencing..." "I'm looking at the exact transcript of your statement on Fox News last week," Crockett interrupted, producing another document. "You made no mention of any sectors. You clearly stated, and I quote, the strongest job creation record in American history. Period." That statement is factually incorrect. The room grew noticeably quieter. Republican committee members shifted in their seats, sensing the tone had changed. This wasn't the usual round of political sparring. They were witnessing a precise, evidence-based dismantling. "Let's move forward," Crockett continued smoothly, refusing to give Bondi time to recover. "You also claimed that crime rates have skyrocketed under Democratic leadership in major cities. I have here the FBI's uniform crime reports covering the last decade." She displayed another document on the screen. "According to this data, violent crime rates have actually declined in 7 of the 10 largest Democrat-led cities during the exact period you referenced." Bondi attempted to interject. "If you selectively use certain statistics, these aren't selective, Ms. Bondi," Crockett replied, her tone steady. "These are the official nationwide figures reported by law enforcement agencies themselves. Are you implying that the FBI is releasing false data?" A low murmur spread through the room. Bondi's composure slipped as she realized the corner she'd been backed into. Denying the data would mean questioning the credibility of the very law enforcement institutions her party consistently defended. Accepting it, however, meant admitting her earlier claims were wrong. Before Bondi could gather a response, Crockett moved forward seamlessly. "Now, the most concerning statement you've made today involves election security," she began. "You claimed there were, and I quote, thousands of verified cases of election fraud in the last presidential election." The room grew tense. This was clearly entering politically sensitive ground. "I have here," Crockett continued, raising a thick folder, "official reports from election authorities in all 50 states, including those under Republican leadership." She held up the documents for emphasis. The verified number of fraud cases was 74 nationwide, not thousands, and only 12 of those were serious enough to potentially impact any results, all in local contests, not national ones. Bondi's confident expression began to fade. She glanced toward the Republican committee members, perhaps looking for backup, but the panel sat in stunned silence, taken aback by Crockett's precise documentation. "Ms. Bondi," Crockett continued, her tone calm but unyielding. "As a former attorney general, you understand the weight of accurate testimony. Yet in the last 30 minutes, I've identified 3 major claims you've made that are provably false according to verified government data." The committee chair, recognizing how the exchange had shifted, tried to interject. The gentlewoman's time. "I still have 2 minutes remaining, Mr. Chairman," Crockett replied evenly, never breaking eye contact with Bondi. The chair hesitated, checked the clock, then nodded in acknowledgement. What happened next would leave the entire room stunned, and soon make headlines across the nation. Crockett reached for one final document. An email appeared on the screen, with Bondi's name clearly listed as the sender. "Ms. Bondi," Crockett asked evenly, "can you confirm this is your email dated March 15th of last year?" Bondi stared at the screen, her expression draining of color. The message, addressed to a network producer, contained a single, incriminating line. "The data doesn't support our narrative, but let's go with the talking points anyway." Viewers don't usually verify the facts. The room erupted in gasps. Reporters immediately began typing on their phones. Democratic members leaned forward in disbelief, while Republicans sat in stunned silence. This was no longer a routine political dispute. This was direct evidence of deliberate misinformation. "That email is taken out of context," Bondi stammered, her once confident demeanor collapsing. "The full email chain is available for the committee's review," Crockett replied calmly. "I'm simply asking if you wrote these words." The tension in the room was unbearable. Every eye was fixed on Bondi. The former Attorney General who had walked in commanding attention was now struggling to find her footing. The stage was set for the defining moment of the hearing, the instant that would not only silence Pam Bondi but reshape both women's political futures. As Bondi hesitated, Crockett seized the opportunity that would later be replayed millions of times across social media and major news outlets. Leaning slightly forward, her tone remained measured yet firm. "Ms. Bondi, I remind you that you are under oath before this committee," Crockett said evenly. "Did you send this email instructing your team to use talking points that you knew contradicted verified data?" The room fell completely silent. Even the quiet rustle of paper stopped. All eyes locked on Bondi, whose polished exterior was gone. Sweat began to form on her forehead as she realized there was no easy escape. "I would need to review the context of that communication," Bondi answered weakly. "The context is quite clear in the full thread," Crockett replied, submitting the complete email chain into the record. "You explicitly acknowledged that the data didn't support your public statements, yet directed your team to use those same claims, calling it a narrative instead of factual reporting." Then, in a deliberate shift of tone, Crockett lowered her voice, calm, sharp, and final, delivering the line that would soon become a defining political phrase. "Ms. Bondi, you've built your reputation accusing others of misleading the American people," Crockett began steadily. "But the evidence clearly shows that you're the one who has been deliberately spreading false information. The difference is, I didn't just make an accusation, I brought proof." The chamber instantly erupted. Democratic members struggled to contain their reactions. Some audibly gasped, others whispered rapidly to their aides. Republican members sat motionless, stunned by the systematic dismantling they had just witnessed. In the press section, reporters were already hammering out headlines. The phrase "I brought receipts" exploded across social media, trending within seconds under hashtags like "Ms. Crockett brought receipts" and "Ms. Bondi silenced." Video clips of the exchange spread faster than the platforms could track their views. But Crockett wasn't done. Remaining composed, she turned to address the committee chair directly. "Mr. Chairman, given that Ms. Bondi's testimony includes several statements proven false, as supported by verified government data, and given that evidence suggests she knowingly provided inaccurate information, I move to strike her entire testimony from the record as unreliable and potentially perjurious." The chairman, visibly uneasy, glanced toward his staff for guidance. This wasn't a routine procedural motion. It was a pointed and devastating legal challenge, delivered with the precision of an experienced trial attorney. "Furthermore," Crockett continued, unwavering, "I request that the committee formally refer this matter to the Department of Justice for investigation into potential perjury before Congress." Her legal expertise made it clear Crockett fully understood the weight and consequences of what she had just set in motion. Her face, once flushed with frustration, had now turned completely pale. The former prosecutor had, in a matter of minutes, become the one under scrutiny, and the evidence against her was undeniable. Republican committee members finally tried to intervene, raising points of order and procedural objections, but the effort came too late. The damage was already done. The image of Pam Bondi, once confident and assertive, now silent and defensive, was etched into the minds of everyone watching. Remaining composed, Jasmine Crockett used her final moments to deliver her closing statement with precision. "Ms. Bondi has spent years accusing others of misleading the American people. But today, the American people have seen where the real deception lies. And unlike many of Ms. Bondi's claims, what I've presented here is not partisan rhetoric. It's documented fact. As the chairman's gavel struck, signaling the end of Crockett's allotted time, the impact was undeniable. In just 5 minutes, Jasmine Crockett had not only disproved Bondi's claims, but had effectively dismantled her credibility with accuracy and restraint. She had done it not through political grandstanding, but through evidence, and Bondi's own words. What unfolded in that hearing was something rare, moment of genuine accountability backed by facts so clear that no political spin could erase them. As Bondi sat, quietly at the witness table, visibly shaken, it was evident to everyone in the room that they had witnessed a career-defining moment, though not the one Bondi had envisioned when she entered the hearing with confidence earlier that morning. The aftermath of Crockett's 5-minute cross-examination was swift and far-reaching. When the committee recessed for 15 minutes, Bondi was immediately surrounded by her team. Their expressions were serious as they huddled in tense discussion. The once commanding former Attorney General now appeared diminished, repeatedly shaking her head as aides showed her the flood of reactions already spreading across social media. Outside the hearing room, the corridors were filled with reporters rushing to file their stories. The entire narrative had flipped from what was expected earlier that morning. Instead of serving as another platform for Bondi's accusations, the hearing had turned into the scene of her public unraveling. "I've covered Congress for over 20 years," one veteran journalist told a colleague, "and I've never seen anything like that." Crockett didn't just win an argument, she dismantled an entire public image with facts that couldn't be denied. Within the hour, the video of the exchange spread across every major social platform. Hashtags like #SacherCrockettClip, #Bondi silenced, and #Crockett brings receipts dominated national trends. Millions of users shared key moments from the hearing. Crockett citing verified statistics, revealing the controversial email, and delivering her now famous line about bringing receipts. News outlets scrambled to revise their coverage. What had begun as routine partisan testimony quickly became the political story of the month. Broadcasts flashed with captions like "Bondi exposed" and "Crockett's receipts," while analysts dissected every second of the exchange. By evening, the reaction had gone far beyond politics. Late-night shows rewrote their monologues, and memes comparing Crockett to movie heroes taking down powerful figures flooded social media. Even celebrities who rarely discussed politics shared the clip with captions such as, "This is how you deal with misinformation," and "Watch and learn." The next morning's headlines told the story. Crockett brings receipts, Congresswoman's, evidence silences Bondi. 5 minutes of precision. How Jasmine Crockett dismantled Pam Bondi. From prosecutor to defendant, Bondi faces perjury. Questions after hearing. The fallout was swift. Networks that regularly featured Bondi as a commentator were suddenly on the defensive. Several canceled her scheduled appearances, citing programming changes. Those who didn't faced backlash from audiences demanding to know why they were still platforming someone whose credibility had been so thoroughly discredited. For Crockett, the effects were the opposite. The freshman congresswoman, previously known mostly to political insiders, had become a national figure overnight. Her office was flooded with interview requests. Senior Democratic leaders publicly praised her for her preparation and precision. What Representative Crockett demonstrated wasn't political theater, the House Minority Leader told reporters. It was real oversight, built on research, clear questioning, and a commitment to factual accuracy over partisan spin. Legal experts also began weighing in. Former prosecutors appeared on cable news, explaining the seriousness of potential perjury charges, while law professors wrote op-eds discussing the ethical responsibilities of attorneys in public life. The issue had moved beyond politics and entered the realm of professional accountability. 3 days later, the story deepened when new emails emerged from the same thread Crockett had presented. They showed that Bondi had been warned by her own staff that her claims were factually incorrect, but chose to repeat them anyway, writing that narrative matters more than nitpicking over data. Social media erupted again. The phrase "narrative matters more than data" became a viral meme, used to mock public figures caught stretching the truth. A week after the hearing, the first major consequence followed. A prestigious law school withdrew its invitation for Bondi to guest lecture on ethics in public service. Their statement cited scheduling conflicts, but few believed that was the real reason. Personally, the damage was immense. Insiders reported that Bondi had canceled multiple public appearances and stepped back from the spotlight to reassess her messaging strategy, a clear attempt at damage control that only drew more attention. Analysts began using the term the Crockett effect to describe the new caution spreading among politicians and witnesses. Congressional staffers noted that people were arriving to hearings with more data, tighter statements, and a newfound fear of being the next Bondi. As for Jasmine Crockett, she managed her rising fame with professionalism. Rather than taking a victory lap, she redirected attention toward policy work. In her first major interview after the hearing, when asked about the viral moment, she simply said, "My job isn't to create viral clips. My job is to make sure the American people get accurate information to inform public policy. When someone testifies before Congress, they have an obligation to tell the truth, especially if they've spent years accusing others of lying." The contrast between the two women could not have been more striking. Bondi, once a confident figure known for her accusations, had been revealed as someone who prioritized narrative over facts. Crockett, once little known outside her district, had become a respected advocate for truth and evidence-based accountability. 1 month later, the final blow came. The committee formally referred Bondi to the Department of Justice for potential perjury investigation. While experts noted such cases rarely lead to prosecution, the reputational fallout was irreversible. The woman who built her image on calling others dishonest now faced questions about her own integrity. The story of Pam Bondi and Jasmine Crockett had become more than just a viral exchange. It was now a textbook example of how preparation, evidence, and composure can expose misinformation. In the halls of Congress, a quiet change was noticeable. Witnesses chose their words more carefully, often distinguishing opinion from verified fact. Staffers began whispering a new warning before hearings. "Remember Bondi. Crockett might be watching." 6 months later, a political science professor summarized the moment perfectly. What made the Crockett-Bondi exchange remarkable wasn't its drama. It was that verifiable facts triumphed over confidence without evidence. In just 5 minutes, Jasmine Crockett reminded the nation of the enduring power of truth. The phrase Crockett brings receipts had entered political vocabulary, used whenever someone came, prepared to challenge falsehoods head-on. Pam Bondi's once frequent media appearances dwindled to friendly outlets unlikely to question her credibility. It was a stark reminder of how quickly reputations can shift, and how one well-documented moment can redefine careers. Jasmine Crockett silenced Pam Bondi not through volume or partisanship, but through something far more effective: undeniable evidence, delivered with precision and calm. If you enjoyed this deep dive into political accountability, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more breakdowns of defining moments in American politics. Because in today's world, receipts matter more than rhetoric.